height of the first wave of this pandemic, our organization saved from demolition by raising more than $600,000 in 45 days in April and March and April. We closed on dozens of properties this year and during this pandemic, from beautiful natural landscapes to working farms and urban green spaces. To meet the needs of people getting outside in socially distanced appropriate ways, we've been able to open 4 of what were previously private preserves to the public. I hope many of you, if not all of you, have had the opportunity to visit those 4 preserves. We've built hiking trails, we installed signage, and created compelling stories about these lands and the people who helped to conserve them. It's been a tough year, but we've not only survived, thanks to the great professionals and the wonderful board of trustees, this organization has thrived, and I'm so honored to be leading as board chair. Tonight, we're thrilled to honor all of the members of our White Oak Society, to welcome new members, and to celebrate this year's Art of Caring Award. To do that and continue the presentation, I'll turn things over to Rich Cochran, our President and CEO, and only preface by saying thank you, Rich. I know you're working very, very hard, and all of us appreciate your ongoing efforts on all of our behalf. So thank you all for being here.
Thank you so much, Mitchell. It's really a privilege for me to work with you as our board chair. It's been an incredible year, and we are so grateful for your leadership and how you've stepped up to really help us navigate these unprecedented waters. Excuse me. Well, welcome everyone to our first ever virtual Stewards Event. The Stewards Event, of course, was created originally, actually, we had it at the Hunt Club in one of the most warm and cozy rooms you could ever imagine, with a fire blazing, and we were packed cheek by jowl in that big room and sharing hors d'oeuvres and drinks and hugs and kisses. It's almost impossible to imagine that happening today, but hopefully we tame this beast soon enough and we'll be able to go back to those kinds of events that I know we all cherish. I want to echo what Mitchell said. The team has done an amazing job since COVID struck our world, at not only being productive, but really going all in on remote and virtual technologies. We've produced quite a few of these events now, and I think we do them well. We keep them short and sweet, but we try to keep them very substantive and impactful. So I think at the end of the meeting, I think you'll agree the staff's done a great job. We also hope you'll enjoy the bottle of wine and the white oak saplings that we delivered to you today. And if you didn't get, if you're not local, obviously you didn't get a delivery, but if you're a local resident and you didn't get a delivery, please let us know. This is obviously just a small token, but an important representation of how much we value our relationships with all of you and how much we appreciate your support, which really makes our mission possible. And we hope that as those beautiful white oak saplings grow into beautiful white oak trees, that you'll be reminded of our mission and the legacy that we're all leaving for our region, which is a remarkable legacy. Just imagine 100 years from now, when tens of thousands of acres of forest that we've preserved at Western Reserve Land Conservancy, when those tens of thousands of acres of forest are another 100 years old, these towering trees soaring above our region, it'll be something to behold. And in a metropolitan region like this, very, very rare. I was looking back at my notes from last year's Stewards Event, and Bill and Kathy O'Neill were our gracious hosts at their incredibly beautiful home. That night was one to remember. It was a beautiful evening, people packed together on their stunningly beautiful pool and patio and garden area. We honored Arthur Ziegler, the recipient of our Art of Caring Award that year. We reminisced with each other, sharing memories, of course, and it got me thinking, while so much has changed in unimaginable ways since last year's Stewards Event, one thing has definitely remained stable, and that's the people who support and sustain this organization. We've weathered this storm of uncertainty with great agility and resilience. The staff, of course, have worked overtime to conserve new properties, to steward existing ones, to plant thousands of trees, to demolish abandoned buildings, to create new public parks and preserves, and of course, finding the funding that makes all of that possible. And while it certainly would have been wonderful to see all of you in person, what really matters to me is that we can all be together, even if not in person right now. And we really appreciate the time you've given us to come together tonight. The most important thing, of course, is that we're all safe and healthy, and that the Land Conservancy is strong, and that the important work we're doing to create thriving, prosperous communities nourished by vibrant lands, working farms, and healthy cities will continue forever. I know that many of you, but probably not all of you, but many of you are suffering from a form of Zoom burnout. So when we got together to plan this event, we first of all said it ought to be pretty short, and we wanted to make it a little different from the other events that we've produced. As you know, at all of our Stewards events, we honor our White Oak Society members, our the people who have added us to their estate plan. We also present the Art of Caring Award, which is one of our highest honors. As I think you all know, white oaks are a really important part of Ohio, a really important part of Western Reserve, of the Western Reserve. They are the most giving of trees. They nourish everything around them, birds, insects, flowers. Of course, they've been incredibly important to human history and the settlement of this nation. They live for hundreds of years. They grow hundreds of feet tall, enormous canopies. They are majestic, tenacious, and again, very giving organisms. It's for these reasons that we chose the name for our society, and we were really happy to be able to share white oak saplings with all of you for this event. Today, we're going to take a few minutes to hear from some of you about what legacy means to you. Our Director of Communications, Jared Saylor, will lead a panel discussion that we hope will entertain and inspire all of you. We're grateful to all of our supporters and look forward to what the future holds for the Land Conservancy. Jared?
Thanks, Rich, and good evening, everybody. And I can't stress enough also how honoring it is to have you all join us. As Rich mentioned, I'm sure that we're all getting a little burnt out on Zoom calls, so we were talking amongst the staff about, what's the way that we can make it a little more interesting. And although we're separated physically, I think there's a great connection between the staff and the supporters and the donors and the board and all of us who make up this great organization. This is my first Stewards event, so as far as I'm concerned, it's fantastic. It's the best Stewards event I've ever been to. The same could be said for the board field trip and the conservation celebration and the spring board field trip. So we're batting 1,000 on these Zoom calls for our events. We talked to a couple of folks before this discussion, before this event, to kind of get a sense of them, their thoughts on legacy. I think that we all share a sort of common definition of what it means to leave a legacy, to leave some sort of remembrance of yourself, your family. But I think that everyone also has a little special definition that is really just their own. So I'm going to pose a question to one of our good friends, Rick Hyde. I know, Rick, you're there somewhere on one of these pages. And I know, for those of you who don't know, I know many of you do, but Rick's been a donor since 1997. He was on our board of trustees from 2001 to 2016, and then rejoined again in 2018. And I think Rick has got a really interesting perspective. So Rick, I'm going to throw it to you and ask you, how do you define legacy?
Well, when asked the question initially, I thought a good starting point is always to go to the dictionary and say, what do they say? And what's the derivation of the term? And curious, perhaps not surprisingly, it's a Latin word that goes back to the 14th century. But the meaning then, I think, was quite a bit different than the meaning that at least I have today. It was a legacy, a legatee. It was a person who was designated. It was an office or a deputy. The term evolved into English law, where it was more of a gift by will, a probate gift. And so, as we honor the members of the White Oak Society, by definition, I guess everybody has a legacy. They have all committed via their probate estates to make a gift, and so the other definition that surprised me a little bit was that it was something that was received from an ancestor or a predecessor, and I guess it could be either coming or going that one has that information. I think a legacy, the way my view of a legacy is that it doesn't necessarily have to be something of a monetary nature, that you can talk about. Marilyn and I have 3 children. I would love to think that part of our legacy to them is to have very good values, to have an appreciation for nature, things of that type. As I said before, I guess the membership in the White Oak Society by itself indicates that a legacy is taking place. To me, there's the White Oak Society has as its core a monetary component. I think legacy has a merit component, where there are many people who perhaps are not as economically fortunate as others, but who through time, through wise counsel, who through any number of different ways have made a significant difference and a significant contribution to the efforts of the Land Conservancy. Let me.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, let me stop there. I mean, I could go on for.
I want to ask you a question that is a little off topic, but I'm just curious. When you said you went and looked up the definition of legacy, did you actually pick up the dictionary off the shelf, or did you go online?
Well, this will shock some of you, but I actually went online. I say shock because Ned Ludd, I'm sure, was one of my ancestors, but if you know who Ned Ludd, if you know the term of Luddite.
Yeah, I as a journalist, I still have my my tattered copy of the dictionary sitting on my desk. So as a former journalist, rather, so.
I used to tell my employees that their goal, if at the end of the day, if you haven't learned something, pick up the dictionary and at least learn a word. Strive to go to bed a little smarter every night than you woke up that day. And if it's nothing but a new word, then good for you.
I think that's a really a good sort of concrete example of legacy. Educating yourself, building your own personal knowledge of the world around us, of the nature that we're surrounded by, of whether you're in the downtown Cleveland or whether you're in the most remotest parts of the state. What would you tell your children, your grandchildren, about the land you've conserved? You're a member of the White Oak Society. You were awarded the Art of Caring Award in 2018. So how would you talk to your own family and to your children and grandchildren about the things that you've done and why it was important?
Well, I don't think there was a moment in time when there was a environmental epiphany or anything. I think I grew up in northeastern Ohio and had relative access to the emerald necklace. So I consider myself very fortunate. We have 3 children. We raised them in Moreland Hills on Jackson Road, not too far from where the Conservancy's headquarters are right now. So they always had good exposure to nature. It's interesting how you asked the question, because what's been interesting to me is how they feed back to me and to Marilyn their impressions of nature and their understanding of what we have done in terms of the conservation easement that we placed on our property. We now live out in Newberry here. We have a conservation easement. We preserved a kind of an abandoned piece of property and have had fun for 20 years rehabilitating it. And our oldest daughter is a professor at Duke. She likes to come and visit and hike out here and count the trees and see how big the white oaks are and what have you. And she observed one year that a lot of our neighbors who are maybe have equestrian farms or large tracts of land have at the entrance to their property a nice signpost with a clever name for their farm. And she wondered why we didn't have that. And I said, you know, it just wasn't something that I thought was important. And she paused for a moment and she said, you should name it Forever Farm. And I thought, Katie, you got it. You got it. The word for, I mean, how many things can we do as individuals that are of a positive nature where you can say it's forever? Not very many.
Oh.
And so I think, I guess I go to sleep at night thinking that our three kids have got a pretty good understanding, and that if legacy can mean something other than monetary, then hopefully part of that legacy is a love for the land.
That's fantastic, Rick. I want to also welcome another really good friend of the organization, and someone who I share a common language with, Tom Liebhart. Tom is the Senior Vice President of Marketing at Sherwin-Williams. And so Tom's on the Marketing and Communications Committee, along with Muffy and Jane and a few others. And Tom and I often have have had a couple of good conversations online, just kind of thinking about how we market ourselves, our organization, how we speak of the work that we do and the importance that it has to everyone. And that's something that I really think is unique about this organization, is that our work can specifically be tied to how it benefits people and communities. So Tom, I know you're out there somewhere. I think I'm gonna see if I can find you here.
I'm right here, Jared.
There you go. So Tom, tell me a little bit, you heard the conversation we just had with Rick. Tell me a little bit about your definition of legacy.
Well, it's funny, when I was asked for my definition of legacy, I haven't really thought about it much, because I feel like I'm still right in the middle of, this crazy life of having 3 children. I have 2 in college and 1 in high school, and I'm still chasing it around a little bit without really thinking too much about outside of the legacy that we all leave for each other and for our children. And, for me so far, it's been, the legacy I want to leave, which I still have to write, is I just want to help make people's lives better. And I've done that through coaching a lot of youth sports and trying to mentor young kids. But, recently I've pivoted in the last few years to, I think this preservation of land and nature that we're all a part of is really important to that. And that's why I love the Thriving Communities work specifically. I love all of our work, but I think that there's a lot of improvement that can happen to enhance the lives of people who are in the areas where we're trying to, re-engineer and provide some tree canopy and those kind of things. But I think the other thing is, I just like to be, I want to be remembered as somebody who led by example, who didn't just say things, who didn't just, I think Rick made a great point about legacy isn't just about the money. It's about what you've done and how you've illustrated the right behaviors. And that's something that's really important to me, and something that I've taken forward. And frankly, I've been the beneficiary of that. And, some of you may or may not know, but John and Pat Leach are my in-laws. And a major reason that I'm involved in this organization is because how they've led by example, and what I've seen over the course of the last 25 years of marriage and plus that I've been with my wife, Carlin, is I've seen how they model the right behaviors to not just talk about doing things, but to get involved and do them. And that is a major reason why I'm involved with this organization. And so if I can take all of, the lessons I've learned from them and my parents and all the other people that I've looked up to as role models, and I can show by example ways to help make other people's lives better, I'll be pretty happy with that. I still got a lot of work to do, though.
I gotta say, Tom, I think you and I are probably roughly the same age, and I've got you beat. I know you've got kids in college and high school. I've got kids in 5th grade and daycare still. So I've got a longer ways to go, if that makes you feel any better.
You have a longer way.
That's right. I'm gonna probably be here well into my 80s, and that's my legacy, right? You mentioned something that I think is really is really relevant to this conversation, in that, you know, mentoring young kids, coaching sports, and leaving land. To me, I think you look at those two things on paper and they seem very different, but in the context of what we're talking about, they're the same. You know, it's you're helping a community, you know, by leaving property and making sure that it's going to be preserved, by being a part of, you know, the baseball team or the basketball team or the hockey team, whatever. You're really having an impact on people's lives, and that seems to be a thread between both yours and Rick's discussion of legacy as being an impact upon others, and being an impact, a positive impact for your community.
Yeah, that's what I think is the most important part of it. You know, sometimes you know, it's funny that, again, the question was asked of me originally if I could speak about it, and I don't really know what I do. I just try to do what's right, and in the end, that's all that really matters. And I think that's what, you know, I think that is a big part of what legacy is.
Yeah. Well, and I look at the board here of all the faces and people, and I see, you know, some of us who are in our middle age, some of us who, you know, like Madison, are starting their families, and some of us who are celebrating our grandchildren or our great grandchildren. And I think that what, to me, kind of is a real hallmark of this organization is that all those generations are coming together to form this collective legacy that is the Land Conservancy. And so with that clearly obvious plug for Western Reserve Land Conservancy, Tom, you probably tip your hat to me on that one. I'm going to send it over to Rick, or send it over to Rich and kick it to you, Rich. What are your thoughts on legacy?
Thanks, Jared. You know, the first thing I thought of when I heard the word legacy as part of this presentation was the famous Winston Churchill quote where he said, "We make a living by what we get, but we make a life by what we give," end quote. And really, for me, legacy is all about giving of yourself. It certainly, as Rick and Tom have mentioned, is not about money, although it can be about money for sure. It's the hallmark of legacy is, you know, what you give to the world to make the world a better place. And it's often our children and our grandchildren who become really our legacy. Are we making the world a better place by rearing our children with great values and great ethics and a work ethic to go out and be a good person and make the world a better place themselves? So this hallmark of giving. And then I think, you know, all of us come to learn, and often at a very young age, 5, 6, 7 years old, that it is more rewarding to give than to receive. When you give someone a gift that hits home, it could be a handwritten note card, it could be a homemade birthday cake, it could be something as simple as a little art project that your child makes for you for your birthday. Those are the things that really make us feel so good as human beings, and I think we're hardwired as human beings to be rewarded for giving. That's what allowed us to create reciprocal relationships and reciprocal societies, is we had an innate drive. Those of us who survived had an innate drive to be reciprocal, to be givers and not takers. So for me, it's really about this concept of giving and making the world a better place. It might mean giving to a charity, as many of you do, to create a new preserve, for example, which is an amazing legacy for a community. As Rick said, we're in the now and forever business. We're not just in the now business, we're in the now and forever business. And for some people, I think legacy means maybe a great technology that they've given to the world to improve the human condition. But across all of these examples, it's this simple concept of giving of oneself. And for me, that's what all of you are. You are such givers, and we cannot thank you enough for that. And that's a perfect segue to recognizing this year's Art of Caring Award recipient, Bill Abel, a man who I believe has kind of perfected the art of giving. He does it with such grace and a twinkle in his eye. He's been a donor of ours for a long time. He established a conservation easement on his family's beloved 220-acre farm in Rock Creek, and a 60-acre property in Roaming Shores. He's also added a beautiful timber frame home to the bequest that he's promised us. He's a member of the White Oak Society, of course, all Art of Caring Award winners. That's the prerequisite. And he's also a recipient of the Grimm Conservation Medal. Bill has really become an integral part of the Land Conservancy, and I'm honored to call him our friend. Please join me in congratulating and thanking Bill, our 2020 Art of Caring Award winner.
You're here.
Thank you. Okay, my turn?
Yes, please.
Okay. Well, I'm very honored to join the group of previous recipients. Whatever I've done to earn this award was the result of decisions that were easy for me to make. Credit goes to the wonderful Conservancy staff I have been fortunate to work with over the years, those in the field and those applying their expertise from the shelter of their cubicles. I protected my property in my family since the early 1860s. I'm out here in central Ashtabula County near Rock Creek. I protected it first with the Grand River Partners and then fortuitously with Western Reserve Land Conservancy so that it would never be divided and developed. Most importantly, this protection would continue on after I die. I'm confident this will happen because of my partnership with the Conservancy, the strength and dedication of the staff, and the bold message of the organization's vision and mission statements. Essential to the future of the Conservancy, of course, is its financial stability and growth. And that is why I became a member of the White Oak Legacy Society. Whatever financial support I have been able to give to the Conservancy while I am alive will continue as my legacy after I am gone. Part of this legacy will also include this farm property, which I know will be in safe hands, if not my own. Another easy decision, and one I encourage others to make. And then I wrote, thank you again, but I'd like to add one thing that it's come to me along as I've heard the other people discussing their thoughts on legacy. I am the legacy of my parents, for which I will always be grateful in so many ways, and that's all I need to say. But the farm is also part of their legacy to me. And I'm so fortunate to have had my parents and to now have the farm and to include it in my legacy to the Land Conservancy. So thank you again for this honor.
Bill, thank you so much. You're a gift to us, and we are so honored and humbled that you've trusted us to care for your farm, your property, your beloved legacy. So we could not be more honored, and you know that we will do everything we can to honor that legacy. So thank you.
You're welcome.
I want to share with everyone, unfortunately, we can't do this live, but we, as we always do, we had a painting commissioned for the recipient.
Oh, wow.
It's called the Art of Caring Award. So we always have a piece of fine art as the gift for the recipient. So this is Bill on his farm in front of his timber frame home. And Chuck Del Papa just did a wonderful job of capturing the sentiment we were hoping for. So enjoy it, Bill.
He did. This is amazing. I pictured in my mind what I thought he might do, and we talked about including the house, but this approach, this idea, this angle, his whole treatment is just amazing, and I'll cherish this forever. And
Great.
thanks to Chuck.
Yeah, he's a wonderful guy.
And B, his wife.
Okay. Um, so in addition to honoring Bill tonight, and as we always do at the Stewards event, we'd like to announce the newest members of our White Oak Society and present them with their pins. Of course, we can't hand them their pins, but we did send their pins to their homes. So please join me in honoring three couples who are being honored this evening: Barb and John Gillette from Medina, Jack and Susie Turbin from Kirtland Hills, and Jim posthumously and his wife Kathy Watterson. Please give them a round of applause. However you can click on the reactions button, you can wave your hands wildly, you can clap, whatever you'd like to do. But thank you to the Gillettes, the Turbins, and the Watershed and the Wattersons, all very long-time close friends of ours, and we're deeply grateful for the giving, for the legacy that they've done with us. I want to thank all of you once again for joining us this evening. Hopefully sometime very soon we'll be able to get together again like we did last year at Bill and Kathy's and have hugs and kisses and hors d'oeuvres together. It was great just to see all of you though tonight, even though it was in the Brady Bunch gallery view. I think the hallmark of this organization is deep and abiding relationships with people. Our mission is about the land. We talk about land and water conservation and restoration all the time, and that is our daily work. But we do it for people. We do it with people. We do it through people. And really, without people, there would be no need for our mission. The birds and the white oaks would be just fine. But we really need to preserve land in cities, in suburbs, in exurbs, and in rural areas for the benefit of people. This is a region that's home to more than 4 million people. Interestingly, approximately 4 million acres in size. And we are essential. Our mission, I should say, is essential to the now and forever of this region. And if we don't create a healthy environment, the communities will suffer and the people will suffer. So what we're doing is essential to the future. The legacy we're leaving, as I mentioned earlier in my remarks, is just going to keep getting better. It's already transformational, but to imagine it in 100 years from now or 200 years from now, I just wish I could be here to see, for example, how big the white oaks are really going to get in our region. It'll be like the primordial forest that Moses Cleveland found when he came here and surveyed. So thank you for making our work possible, for allowing our legacy to happen. And as those of you who are on our board know, and our staff, during our last strategic plan, we revisited what we call the pillars of our organization, the kind of what we view as the foundational elements of our organization and why we're successful. And the word legacy became one of our pillars. And it had never been viewed as a pillar before because frankly, we were such a new organization. We didn't really have a legacy yet. But during this last strategic planning process, a couple of trustees raised their hands and said, look, what we've accomplished is now a pillar. We have preserved more than 60,000 acres. We've planted thousands of trees. We've raised funding to get rid of urban blight in not only our region, but in most of the state of Ohio. We've created a legacy already. And that in and of itself, the kind of our body of work, what we've given to the world now and forever, is now a pillar of our organization. And I couldn't be more proud of that. When I was hired in 1996, I think we had preserved almost 400 acres in total. And that already seemed like a wonderful legacy. And now with about 65,000 acres and growing every year because our staff has gotten to be so good at preserving land, we're really moving the needle. And I'll just conclude by saying, again, that is for people, with people, and through people, and especially all of you. Without you, we wouldn't exist. We wouldn't have any success. So thank you from the bottom of our hearts for making our organization possible, for being our friends, for forming those deep and abiding relationships that make our work possible. I wish all of you the best. I hope to see you soon. Please reach out to me anytime, and have a great night. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.